You might be considering purchasing the brand new Shure MV7. I just got mine from Sweetwater and I'm excited to mess with it here. I have it connected via the XLR. I'm not using the USB connection because I want to run it through an EQ specifically, and we're going to maybe add some compression afterwards too. But I just want to offer the sound of this on my voice, on this microphone, with my voice in my room, post EQ, after you can run it through an EQ and see what it can do. You can see the frequency response of the microphone. It's very similar to the SM7B, which is a kind of classic standard microphone. It's kind of got the drop off of the low end, and we have a few little peaks here for sibilance and clarity. But I think it has a very similar sound. I recognize it right away just listening to it. And for a pretty good price compared to the SM7B, the MV7 by Shure is actually a pretty good buy, I think, and I like it. You can't go wrong. I'm digging it so far. So let's hear what it sounds like. I have already run through and did the settings because it takes too long to kind of walk through it here. And I just wanted to do a quick video to show you before and after EQ on this microphone. A lot of times you'll see a review on YouTube or something of a mic, and they purposely illustrate the microphone with no effects, no anything. And I think that's great for comparison, but it's also nice to hear what it sounds like processed, and you could really kind of get a real world example of what the mic's going to be in your studio or how you're using it. So I've added a nice little resonance boost, and you can see in the frequency response, because this microphone is primarily designed as a vocal mic. It could be used on a guitar cabinet or if a singer live situations. This bass drop here is one of the characteristics of the microphone. But when you're, sometimes they'll do these shapes so the studio engineer has less work to do with an EQ later if it was just totally and completely straight. This drop off here is so the vocalist doesn't compete with frequencies of the low end music that's happening. I think that's just my suggestion. I'm guessing that's what that was originally designed for, so it doesn't compete with the bass guitar when you're using it as a vocal mic. But what I like to do when I'm actually producing a voice over or doing streaming or recording a spot for a commercial or whatever, I like to fill up the entire frequency space, and that's why this boost is here. I'm replenishing that the low energy and the low warmth of the microphone that was taken out by the natural EQ curve in this microphone. So that's what that bump is for. And I've got some resonant areas, resonant bands that are pretty common for my voice that I've dropped a little bit to smooth out the frequency response. And then I like to add the some air and clarity in the high end. So let's hear what it sounds like. This is obviously before we've been listening to with no EQ, and this is what it sounds like afterwards. It's got a nice warm bump here. Without getting too resonant, and pop the highs a little bit. I like to compare it to if this was a photograph, we'd be increasing the contrast. It just makes everything a little bit more apparent and a little more striking. Here's without it. Doesn't sound bad at all. The microphone does a great job of picking up all of the frequencies, but I think once you add an EQ, it has a tighter sound. It cleans up the bass and warms it up a little bit and sounds better, I think, on my voice. And some of that high-end clarity. You can always raise this up. I like the clarity in the air. When there's not enough of it, to me it sounds lifeless, but that's my own preference. So there you go. That's kind of my setting. And then just for fun, I always like to kind of put some compression on it and see what it would sound like in a broadcast situation. Also, it's good to add a little compression. I've got about 2.5 to 1 and maybe 5 to 7 dB of gain reduction on this compressor. So it's doing some work, but definitely can hear the impact of the compressor. I like to use a compressor after the EQ and hear what it's going to sound like, because a lot of times a compressor will amplify the changes that you've made with an EQ. And you could see that's without it, and with the compressor on, it just sounds that much bigger, I think. So I'm digging this SMV from Shure, the podcast microphone they just came out with. A great price. It's got my stamp of approval. I'm digging it. I've got an EQ course on my website if you want to learn kind of how to do this. LennyB.com is my website, and it's where I teach you how to properly EQ for your voice, so you can really EQ and optimize the sound of your voice or any voice on any mic in any room. It's really a great skill to have. And I say this often, and I'll say it again here. The goal, really, if you're broadcasting or podcasting or streaming or recording voiceovers or just producing, really the goal, the end game here is to get your voice to connect on an emotional level with the listener. That's really what we're doing all this production for, is you want to make that emotional connection. And that's the difference between success and failure and when you're doing marketing and when you're telling a story. So EQ is one of those professional tools that can definitely help you really emphasize that emotion. All right, that does it for this video. Let me know what you think. And if you have the MV7, I'd love to hear your thoughts, but I'm digging the mic. Thanks for watching.